Welcome to the demo of PilotFish's asymmetric encryption for PGP. This process is going to start with using a route that I have put together for eligibility transactions. So we have our source system over here, that's where the data is coming from, and that's defined. The first step is the listener, and the listener is going to be doing a directory and file listener. So we have our configuration down below for the file that we're going to be pulling in, which is a JSON file. This source transformation is going to transform that JSON file into XML. So we're using our transformation module for JSON that's going to transform the JSON into XML. At that point, we're also going to do some processing of that JSON file into the 270 transaction, which is happening over here on the right-hand side. The next step is our routing step, and this is going to send all of the data to all targets. So we're going to actually have two different targets here on the right-hand side. The first target is going to take and really just pass this data on into our transport step. But the intention here is that we're going to create the 270 transaction. We're going to convert that into from XML to X12, and then we're going to encrypt that data with our asymmetric encryption to be able to send to the target system. The second thing we're doing with the data is we're going to do a SNIP validation against that 270 data to make sure that the transaction is SNIP compliant, if you will. In the transport step, and this is the main thing that we really want to look at in this demo, is we're doing some pre-processing before we place this file into a directory, which is configured down below. And that pre-processing really has two steps. One, we're going to take the XML data that we created in the source transformation step, and we're going to transform that from XML to EDI. And then the second step is to take that file and do asymmetric encryption. And so to do that, we basically have a processor configuration over here on the right-hand side to do that encryption. We are going to use 128-bit encryption, and the public key we're going to be using is just a key that I have in place that was created with OpenPGP, which is an open source PGP tool. And so I just have an ASC file that I created with that open source tool that I'm plugging into the public key file. So it's going to take my 270 transaction and apply that public key to this process, and then it'll save that data file out in the target configuration, which is going to send it out to this data file. And again, the other thing it's going to do is it's going to do that SNIP validation. So I'm going to go into test mode, and I'm going to go ahead and execute the whole process. And so again, as we do test this, if it is successful, it gets the green check marks saying it was successful, it went through and created this. So if I start from the left-hand side and just kind of look at the data files, I can double click and look at the JSON file that came in. This is just the data that we're going to be using to create the 270 transaction. And then we're going to go into the source transformation. And one of the things we said we were going to do is create that 270 transaction. Again, this is the 270, but it's in an XML format. So it has the interchange information, the sender receiver, the functional group information, and then the actual transaction set itself for the 270 transaction. Again, the route step, we're sending this data to two different targets, and the first target is going to send it over to the transport step. And what we're doing in this first step is we're taking that XML for the 270 transaction and turning that into the X12 format. So everything from the ISA with all of the enveloping information all the way through the IEA. And then we're going to encrypt that data with that key. And so if I double click this, we get what looks like a bunch of just random characters that is the actual encrypted 270 transaction. So there's really not too much to see within the 270 transaction at this point. So if I go to the next tool, and this is just basically just an OpenPGP tool, and I'm going to go ahead and decrypt that data file. So the data file that we created was this file right here in its encrypted format. So I'm going to just select that, and it's going to ask for a passkey. And so I'm just going to pause this for a second while I key in the passkey because it's a rather long key. So hold on for just a second. Okay, and so that's completed, and I typed in my key, and my key is rather long. It's about 32 characters in length. And so it completed successfully decrypting the file, and I can actually hit the save button, and I want to just save this as that data file, and I'm going to overwrite it because I ran it once before. And so now if I go to my folder where it saved this information, I now have both the input file and the output file, and if I take and I open the output file, I'm just using Notepad++. This is what the decrypted file looks like. So from PGP, I took all of that data that was all scrambled and decrypted. So this is what the original file looked like. This is what the destination file looks like, and again, they're both the same. And so again, we have the ability to apply PGP encryption using our asymmetric encryption and decryption tools to be able to send secure data files between trading partners. So if you have more questions about our encryption decryption process, please reach out to pilotfishtechnology.com, and hopefully this short demo will help you understand how we process transactions securely using asymmetric key encryption and decryption. Thank you very much.